Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey there, welcome back. It's me, Joe Slepsky. Welcome back to Joe on Joe Extreme. This is the only podcast where I talk about G.I. Joe, the animated series. And in this case, we're talking G.I. Joe Extreme, the animated series. And we're talking about the second episode of G.I. Joe Extreme today with a very special guest, a listener of the show. He's calling in from Salt Lake City, Utah. His name is Ryan Springer. Ryan, welcome to Joe on Joe Extreme.
Could not be happier to be here.
Man, it's a real pleasure to have you. You reached out over Instagram or Twitter, I believe, one of the two, and you said, hey, I like G.I. Joe. Let's talk Extreme. I'm happy to see you back up, and that's all you have to do, listeners. If you are out there and you want to be a guest on the show, please feel free to hit me up at Joe on Joe Pod. That's my social handles at Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, or send me an email to joeonjoepod@gmail.com. And it's as easy as jumping on Skype. I feel like everyone's doing Zoom these days, though, Ryan. Are you doing Zoom? Are you doing a lot of Zoom videos? Zoom
crashes on me all the time. I default to Skype and then plain old phone calls.
Yeah. Oh, the phone. What is that?
Yeah.
Phone is the weirdest thing because now obviously we all have one, but the quality of phone calls has never been worse.
Well, and the text messaging thing, it just eliminated the personal contact.
It really does. Yeah, I rarely talk on the phone. It's so strange. So Ryan, tell me about you. You're in Salt Lake City, Utah. You said you live in a bit of a more rural area. Where's that at?
Salt Lake City. I'm about 20 miles, 15 minutes, whatever, south. Grew up in Utah all the time. This is G.I. Joe. So I'm like a 70s kid. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a real American hero purist. And if you know about Utah, you know that certain members of certain citizens of Utah leave for 2 years. And that's kind of where the 2 years skipped me on G.I. Joe Extreme. I fast forwarded, I came back, I kind of got interested in action figures and Star Wars and starting to look back on my childhood. And G.I. Joe Extreme was always the blind spot because it happened to coincide with the 2 years I was out of the country. But it's been really cool to get back into.
What aspect of it are you, quote unquote, getting back into? Are you getting into the animated stuff, the toys, the comics, or all of it, all the above?
So kind of all of the above. This particular cartoon/comic has been a blind spot of mine. So I'm like I said, I'm a total geek. I love the nerd stuff. I love Star Wars. I love comic books. I love G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe has always been a passion of mine, but I go to conventions and I kind of look for figures, and I've always thought, what the hell is this G.I. Joe Extreme thing?
Yeah.
It's just such an anomaly. And where does it fit into the continuity?
It is, and it's funny that it is such kind of the bastard child of G.I. Joe, because it's not, we were talking about before we got on, the versions we're watching are the best versions I was able to come up with. I got them on a bootleg DVD. They're not available. They're not streaming. They're not released in any proper fashion, and yet aspects of this show have made its way into the actual live action G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra movie. They've made its way into the current comic books. There have been elements of the show that people have picked up on, but Hasbro doesn't do anything with it.
In a way, I admire the storytelling that has been done. And like, I'm a huge fan of your podcast.
Thank you.
I cannot say enough about how much I like your stuff. But
thank you very much.
Blows too much sunshine up your skirt. But it's really interesting to me the way that this particular episode, if you will, of the G.I. Joe universe has kind of come to be, and how it's kind of a artifact of an era that is important to me as, like, I guess a Gen Xer or whatever, or something where I kind of transitioned from adulthood to childhood. And I don't know, you could get into the psychology of that forever. But I just think it's cool.
Yeah, I agree. And you did some great research for me, which I'm probably gonna reference more than just today's episode, but you put together like this sheet of kind of this timeline of all the stuff that you could find about this. And it was great because it put a lot of things in perspective for me because there was not a lot out there. As far as like they did this after they had acquired Kenner, Hasbro, I'm talking about. That a lot of the toys you were able to put together, and it's as comprehensive as the yojo.com stuff, but it's in more of a linear timeline and like what else was going on in the world and things like that. So that was really helpful and also inclusive of the references and the legacy of it, of where they've incorporated some of these characters post cartoon.
Well, and that's what fascinates me is the storytelling aspect of all of this. I think that what I was drawn to in the old A Real American Hero days, I think that's very distinctive. And I've thought a lot about, what we do and how that works into business. And in my profession, I work in a lot of business transactions, and I understand that. But what it really ultimately boils down to for me is storytelling. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is really cool about this Extreme series is not only is it an artifact of a specific era, but it also accomplishes a lot of the same things that the storytellers of the original A Real American Hero line, Larry Hama, blessed be, praise God, serious. He synthesized a lot of really interesting cultural things that were going on at the time A Real American Hero came out. Mm-hmm. And then the way that those things were adapted to this kind of quirky little 2-year Extreme line came to be. I just think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with 10 years in the future. And I actually enjoy that like sci-fi trope or storytelling trope, however you refer to it, where it's just far enough in the future, but it's not too far. So everything's recognizable, but 10 years can be a long time. A lot of things can change in 10 years. And then it's the they never name it, but we assume it's Russia, but the downfall of one of the superpowers, is just upset the globe. And so it's allowed Scar to rise in power and everything. And it gives a nice window of, it could be post the Real American Hero stuff, or it could just be in our world, just in the future. Like it gives you this area, this wiggle room, which brings me to something that I really kind of wanted to bring up, and I wanted to bring it up with someone else. I didn't want to throw it out on my first episode, which is just me talking to myself. Have you ever seen the cartoon Spider-Man Unlimited?
Absolutely.
Does this not remind you of Spider-Man Unlimited?
In the nostalgia factor, absolutely yes. Personally, it's a little bit different because, like I said, G.I. Joe it's kind of my thing. Spider-Man and Marvel and the comic book stuff has kind of been exploited to the point that I'm not quite as intense about it. Uh-huh. But the way that movie, the Spider-Man movie, kind of pulled everything together, that's what I like, is the synthesis.
Yeah. Well,
and that's what I see in this program.
Well, for me, the reason this cartoon reminds me so much of that Spider-Man Unlimited cartoon is that it took Peter Parker and it threw him into this alternate Earth it was rotating on the other side of the sun. Don't worry about it. Sci-fi physics. And he landed on an Earth that was almost like ours, but it was different. There were characters like Venom and there was a Goblin character, but it wasn't really Goblin. And it wasn't really, or actually I think it was Venom because I think Venom stowed away on the plane, but it was a new Venom. And all of the characters were sort of familiar, but they weren't. They were kind of archetypical of what Spider-Man's villains would be, but they weren't really. Kind of a little bit like Spider-Man 2099 as well. And also along with the animation style, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it might be similar animation houses too. And that's what this show feels like. And Spider-Man Unlimited, I think, is very underrated. I think it's a really, really overlooked show. It's weird, and it does suffer from this like overly dark, overly shadowed, but not smoothed out like Batman animated style. So I think that hurts it. But it's a really cool show. If you've never seen it, I would urge any listeners to check out Spider-Man Unlimited. I believe they're all on Disney Plus now. but it's a really good show, and it's very reminiscent of G.I. Joe Extreme in that regard, where it's something familiar but yet something different.
And you just touched on something that I think keys into something that I think about a lot, and that's the archetypical narrative, the storytelling that goes on. It doesn't matter whether it's Lieutenant Stone or Duke, or it doesn't matter, which version of Spider-Man it is. There are these storytelling, we kind of call them tropes, but there are narratives that kind of tap into these archetypical stories that we all want to hear and that all resonate with us. And that's what I have found in exploring this extreme line is, while it incorporates some of the cultural tropes, some of the cultural influences of the era, the narrative itself tells a story that we can all identify with. And I think that as G.I. Joe fans or Spider-Man fans or Captain America fans or whatever, there are things that we identify with. And I think that's important. And I think that's important to contextualize in terms of what's going on in the broader culture.
I agree. And I think it's a very astute observation. We definitely saw that with Larry and the ARA stuff. And I think we are seeing that with this. We just need to put our mind frame into that era, which was, as you noted in these notes to me, it was all about Saddam Hussein and the Middle East, war in the Middle East, of us, ramping up the military. Was no longer the Cold War. It was an active war going on over there. And I think you do get shades of that, as you noted in these notes to me, of Iron Klaw basically being a very much a Saddam Hussein type character.
With a Darth Vader face.
With a Darth Vader face, yeah.
Yeah, no, I could, and like I said, I have a social science background, and I'm sensitive to the critiques of social science. But at the same time, I think, it's black and white. It's good and bad. And all of the things I have enjoyed about the limited amount of G.I. Joe Extreme stuff that I can find on YouTube or whatever, I kind of relate that back to a real American hero story. And this is good and evil, good and bad. And I think what's really interesting is in that era of the mid-90s, there's this, this concept of the anti-hero that emerges with Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, and things like that, where you kind of start to see some moral equivalency that, in the original American hero line, there's, this patriotism. I don't want to get too political, but this kind of pro-Reagan Cold War stuff that goes on. But it's not always so simple. And I really appreciate the extreme, extreme. How that plays into kind of cultural development.
Yeah.
And, I kind of go at it at this kind of nerdy, academic, whatever approach. But at the same time, I'm thinking, what toys do I want to play with? What do I want to envision?
Yeah.
And that's what really comes out to me in this little 2-year era of the G.I. Joe narrative.
That's very cool. Well, I'm excited to get into this episode. We are watching the second episode today, ladies and gentlemen, and it is the name of the episode is Serious Legwork, and that is referencing a broken leg by our lead character, who is Mayday. She's the Scarlet kind of pastiche character. I like that they're not just straight ripping off people. Like Black Dragon isn't just Snake Eyes. He is similar, but he's different personality. And same thing with Mayday. Like you could see, oh yeah, they're going for that Scarlet archetype, but she's got a different personality to her.
And that's what I love about it is that you get these kind of archetypal characters that it doesn't matter if it's Mayday or Scarlet or Black Dragon or Snake Eyes or Rampage and Destro. There are kind of these personalities or, the archetypes that personify certain characteristics, and they're on full display. And if you can make toys about them, hell yeah, I'm all in.
And they made toys, which we'll talk a little bit later. I think there's some Kenner influence we're going to talk about. So listeners, if you've got the access to this episode, please queue it up. And if this is the first time hearing about all this stuff, please enjoy and ride along with us. We'll try to keep you up on the action as it goes. So Ryan Springer, you can find him on Twitter at SpryUte. That's SPRYUTE, hailing from Utah. And he will follow you with all things geek. So we appreciate that as well. And you can always follow me at Joe and Joe Pod. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're out there, if you're listening on iTunes, please leave me a review. That always helps to bump up the numbers and get more people listening to the show. And most of all, we hope everyone's safe and sane and doing the right thing during this kind of scary, kind of weird time that we're all going through. So with that, we're going to get ready to hit play on the episode called Serious Legwork, and here we go. I'm impressed by this woman's cosplay outfit for Mayday. I think it looks pretty good. So listeners, what we're getting is, before all these episodes, they had live action. We talked a little bit about this previous one. It's live action actors portraying these Joe characters. And in this case, it's Mayday, who's getting shot at by like quasi CGI planes, and she jumps off it's like an action scene. There's no dialogue or anything. And it, for what it was, it looked good.
It looked great. I wanted a movie of it.
Yeah.
Like, sitting here now, I want that movie.
Yeah, and do you remember the Real American Hero live action stuff that they started doing towards the end of that? Yeah, that was really kind of cool too. And there's another episode about
the faults of the movie, but the live action stuff, I'm all about it. And It's kind of interesting to talk about the Power Rangers influence and how they introduced that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that introduction on this episode, hell yeah, I'm all in.
It's a lot of fun. And there on the previous one, the Iron Klaw looked great. Like that's. I had no complaints
Special
about
effects
that.
Don't hold up so much, but
the
concept.
Right. But what are you going to do with 95? I mean, that's when you watch T2, which is like, and here we go. The episode's starting now. Serious Legwork, written by Julia Jane Leewald. Like T2 was like the most cutting edge thing ever. And even that you watch now and you go, okay, I mean, it's good, but it's, and obviously it was amazing for the time, but you see all the flaws.
That's kind of the social science thing I come at it with, is I think this is really interesting that Julia, this is the only episode of Extreme she wrote.
Okay.
And I go back to this, this era of 95, 97, whatever it was, and this whole Lilith affair and the L7, Babes in Toyland. I look at Mayday in this episode, and I'm like, dude, that chick listens to Courtney Love and Hole. And I could be wrong. I think that's significant.
Yeah, I do.
I think so too. I think she's definitely her own woman. She's got a broken foot, by the way, just to be clear. That's what sidelines her throughout this adventure.
But they kind of crap on her at the beginning when she tries to join the Joy team. They're like, "No, you can't do it." And then this whole episode is about her. This is girl power. This is GRRRRRL.
Yeah, and that's great. That's one of the things that Real American Hero did really well. It really wasn't until we got to the DIC episodes where you got large chunks of shows that had featured no female characters. And that was primarily because the toys didn't have a female. There was like 2 years, or 1 year, where there was no female character in the line. So they just didn't feature them just because they were only featuring the toys. So this is Inferno. Inferno is one of the featured bad guys. He looks like he's the Sky Stalker squadron leader, and he looks like the Vulture, Adrian Toomes from Spider-Man, with a like a metallic eyepiece. and he carried a flamethrower for a backpack, so that would be why he gets the the name Inferno. Now this dude here, do we know his name?
Okay, so yeah. So I think this is Rampage. So
Okay.
he's the corporate villain who also turns into an
the Hulk
Incredible
guy.
Hulk.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's the
he's-
question. Where did you get that information? Because they didn't make all the toys. I usually use the toys as kind of the matching point, if I'm having trouble. And where did you get that this guy's name is Rampage?
So it's off of, I'm sure it's yojo.com or histank.com or somewhere, because I never found this guy.
Okay.
And I will tell you, I'm a action figure nerd. So this is Rampage. He's J. Remington something the third. and he's this, so he's Destro / Tomax.
Yeah.
He's the corporate villain who happens to be he wants to take over Scar.
Okay. Scar. Yeah. He's Starscream.
So this is Rampage.
Right. So now, and Mayday, real quick. Mayday's trying to go on this mission with the Joes, and Lieutenant Stone is having none of it. Lieutenant Stone, not Sergeant Stone. Sergeant Savage. That's the other.
Either. They're the masculine dude of the show.
Yeah, they're
Sergeant
very
Savage,
similar.
Lieutenant Stone.
They're very similar.
But J. Remington III is a wealthy arms dealer tycoon 1 minute and a rage-filled women's freak the next. He's greedy and power-hungry. He thinks he should be in charge of Scar. Only his crush on Mayday can stop him in his tracks. I pulled that off his stupid little dog tag thing.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I found him on the Wikipedia page. Yep.
There you go. Unleashing his inner fury, Rampage gains the element of surprise on the battlefront with his exploding rage helmet.
Rage helmet.
Rage helmet! Like, extreme!
And he's voiced by Colin Murdoch. I'll say this about the voices. The voices on the show are great. They're not that DIC Canadian flatness. Like they did a wonderful job with the voice acting on this show.
And the animation, everything.
Yeah.
Like, that's what makes me kind of love this show. Is there's some kind of, they were getting it, but that's Rampage.
Yeah.
The corporate, whatever. He's this crazy guy, but he loves Mayday. He's got a crush on her. According to the
okay. Well, he did in that first episode. He was angry and fighting him, and as soon as he turned and saw her, he was like, "Hello." So, and it's like a little Beauty soothes the savage beast, I think.
Oh, the very true. That's perfect. But now here we get to the toy commercial.
Well,
which is what I love.
Yeah, so we are right now Rampage, or Inferno rather, is cacklingly so they're attacking the base. Basically, Rampage is controlling these robots. And
just shockwave. Like we cannot ignore the Joe Former retcon.
So Mayday's, she's taking care of business. She's on this sky cycle, not sky cycle, but motorcycle. See, that's the other thing too. I don't really know the names of these vehicles.
Oh, it's the Road Bullet.
Road Bullet.
Road Bullet. Now it's like a Ram, but it's turbocharged, and this is the adolescent in me. I'm like, this is the Tron light cycle.
Oh yeah, and they did make a toy of this. That is pretty cool. That's totally a light cycle.
They did.
Yeah. That's not bad at all. And the Sky Stalker looks pretty cool too. There's of the 6 vehicles I'm looking at, 3 of them are pretty sweet. The Bone Splitter's pretty sweet. Sky Stalker cool. This light cycle Road Bullet's cool. The Sand Striker's a little meh. And then,
no, but I'd buy it because it becomes important in the episode. because it's a tank that converts to a hovercraft.
Oh,
and who the
yeah.
heck doesn't want a tank that doesn't convert to a hovercraft?
That's so true. That's so true. Who couldn't use that, by the way, in everyday life?
No, right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
I'm
completely
constantly
practical.
driving off like watery, like in bridge embankments, and like, well, at least I want to, but I don't have a hovercraft, so it's the only thing that stops me from driving off the road into the ocean. Had I a hovercraft, wouldn't be having this conversation.
Amen.
Yeah.
No,
So
it's obvious.
We're gonna
I don't know what
go to commercial. We'll be right back. Today's Filecard feature is on the leader of Scar, codenamed Iron Klaw. Iron Claw's file name is Count Von Rainey, and his specialty reads, the mastermind and leader of the Scar forces, completely power-hungry and bad to the bone, poses as Count Von Rainey while secretly plotting military operations and evil invasions in his ultimate plan to rule the world. I'm curious, they're calling it that he's posing as Count Von Rainey, or is he just Count Von Rainey who went bad? I'm wondering if we get answers to that on the show. Like, did he kill Count Von Rainey and take his identity? Has he always been Count Von Rainey? I want to know. His figure is really, really cool. He's got this Punisher skull face mask. It's a little bit different from the show. The show makes it look a little more like straight on metallic, like a Destro face mask, but his figure looks more like a skull face mask, like a little Punisher meets Crossbones from the Marvel Universe. It's got gold and silver armor on him, black with kind of a violet belts all over him. He's pretty neat. And what I really love is they give him a beret on top of his mask, but then they make the beret, the flaps at the back of it kind of are flapping in the wind to like give him motion. He's kind of neat. Iron Klaw, I'm here for Iron Klaw. They did 3 versions of Iron Klaw too. I don't know that we're going to do file cards on all 3 of them, but his second version is more so like he looks more like a robotic soldier, like a bat. He actually looks a little closer face wise to the cartoon in the second version. And the third version is real cartoony. He's a little battle damaged. He's got some torn stuff. That's kind of neat. He's got huge hands in the third one. He's got big hands. So Iron Klaw, Count Von Rainey, we salute you.
You don't want to incur my wrath.
So we're back 98 miles south of the Arctic Circle.
Just a distraction, bro.
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Just
Yeah.
a distraction.
So that's the hovercraft / sand striker. That is kind of cool. Yeah.
No, it's cool as.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want one.
Yeah. I'm there for that. And this guy's got a little
sand striker as much as I want the tiger. What is it called? The tiger. Oh,
Tiger King.
Tiger King. Tiger. Oh,
the tiger. Was that
Tiger Hawk?
Tiger Hawk.
Oh, it's the conversion of the Tiger Hawk and the Skyhawk.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. They also 2 of the toys that they made were just standalone like weapons platforms. The Detonator and the Spitfire, like one for G.I. Joe and one for Scar. And then they had 3 vehicles. It looks like 2 vehicles for G.I. Joe, because the Sky Stalker, that was the Joe's airplane, right?
No, the Sky.
Oh, that's the
Stalker
bad guys.
is a bad guy vehicle.
Oh, and the Bone Splitter was. So the Joes never had an airplane in this run then,
That's
or at least
why
made as a toy.
Mayday is trying so hard to get to the Tiger Hawk. She knows its potential.
Got it.
And Inferno is trying to steal that tech.
Got it. Oh, you know what? Sprinklers. My father, lifelong sprinkler fitter. He'd be very happy with what just happened.
Yeah, no.
Sprinklers saved the day.
Screw stuff up.
I spent my entire life walking into every building we ever walked into with my father, and the first thing he would do is he would look up and we'd see if it was sprinkled, and he would go, "All right, we're safe. We can proceed. It's sprinkled." He wouldn't stay in a hotel unless it was sprinkled. My life was all about sprinkler heads.
Well, sprinkler sparks fired. Like, there's an alchemical, I don't know, fire, water, whatever. But the point is, Holy crap!
Yeah, that
Now I'm left alone.
was one big grenade by Mayday there. So she just
Yeah.
took out some of these robots. And do the robots have an official name like bats?
No,
or
I
anything?
can't tell. Skyrims or something.
Well-
but when we get to the 2017 or whatever retcons, those are Shockwave prototypes.
Oh, okay.
Aren't
Really?
they? Am I wrong?
Well,
Look at their faces.
Okay.
A Shockwave.
All right. I think they're just called they're just called like Scar soldiers according to the Wikipedia. They're the robot foot soldiers of Scar.
Wish the heck they could be bats.
I mean,
But-
speaking of all that, real quick, in the last week of new comics shipping to comic book stores, ladies and gentlemen, there happened to be a book called Transformers versus Terminator. It's awesome. I don't know. It was not on my radar. I hadn't heard about it until I saw it there, and it's literally the last shipment of comic books before this pandemic closed everything down. It was really, really good. I gotta say, guys, seek it out. I hope when everything clears up that this series gets finished, because it was a fun take on the Transformers and Terminator universes.
You better be afraid of the dark.
So we've got Mayday, and she's going into like night vision mode.
And then we get back to
We cleaned up the last of Scar's mess. We're heading
Yep.
the Dude Joes, the Bro Joes.
Bro
with
Joes!
The Extreme Joes with their tribal tattoos. They've been distracted. And so now it's just Mayday. It's up to Mayday and Inferno. What's going to happen?
Yeah, it's so these guys are definitely overly musculared, and that does seem you in that note you sent over. You see the connection between the Kenner Star Wars figures, that first line of Star Wars figures, which were super buff. So you're saying these guys are Shockwave guys?
I think the robots are Shockwave guys.
Yeah, I could see that.
You know, I don't know. I'm not a big Transformer guy,
No,
but
I can see that. I mean, we know they live in the same universe. We've proven this many times. And also, literally in the comic books, they crossed over, both in the non-continuity versions and also in the actual Real American Hero continuity. So we know this is true. Don't try to deny it.
no denial. But the
this is that toy. This is that base. This is that base toy. This is the Spitfire. That's what, and maybe it's because the sound on this is muddled. The versions that we're reading, it's got that VHS sound. We're gonna go to commercial, right? We'll be right back.
really hot. So report back here after these messages. Grab your guts and your gear, because we're going back in.
There's this low muffle on all of the sound for this, so it is actually a little harder for me to hear, to make out exactly everything they're saying. But for my money, they don't do a great job of hammering home exactly what the names of everyone and everything is. I feel like the old show did a really good job of that.
No, the old show, I will die on the hill of a Real American Hero being the perfect thing. But
Oh yeah,
this is so effing awesome. She steals a prototype helicopter and blinds Inferno.
yeah, it's great.
How could that be any better?
Yeah, it's great. And he's got a little Dr. Mindbender to him. I think it's the monocle look.
Dr. Mindbender / Scrap Iron.
Yeah.
But again, we go back to the Jungian archetypes, and
Yep.
that's all he is.
Well, that and touching it base with the comic books, and I had no idea that Larry Hama had worked on design of the show, but knowing that he did that, you go back to the comics he wrote, all the early Cobra scenes, all of them, it was all Shakespearean, like infighting and inter-court arguing between the lords and duchesses of, of hot Cobra High Command. Like that's all those scenes, those early scenes in the comics was all these just backbiting and really personal relationships, which is great. And I think that carries over to the cartoons a little bit, where everyone's got this archetype. Yeah, everyone's got this archetype.
Rampage, Wreckage.
Yep.
I mean, it's just the thing about the thing that is so beautiful about Extreme is it's so on the nose. It's like, really? Okay. You got the good guys, the bad guys.
Yeah.
You got the good guys who think they're bad guys. And that's kind of the thing that makes this unique about the 90s, I guess, is this concept of the anti-hero that is broken in by Frank Miller and, whomever.
The Punisher and yep.
The Punisher.
Yep.
Lobo,
Roger Sliffer.
Roger Sliffer.
Co-creator of Lobo.
Vince Lobo.
Yep.
Who visually looks a lot like Rob Liefeld's stuff, and
and Lobo was a commentary on like extreme culture, and he was, or at least he became it. Early on, I think he was more traditional, but once they got into his miniseries stuff, that's when they went, oh no, he's a caricature of the extreme stuff.
And that's what I think I love about this episode. Is in the initial episode, Mayday is kind of pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
She fixes everything with a cast on her foot.
Yeah, she does great.
And as an examination of that era, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that Riot Girl, L7, Courtney Love, whole, whatever.
Yeah.
That is what it is.
It's got that attitude.
And
frankly,
the
cast on the foot, it's not much bigger than the combat boots that women were wearing at the time. And I'm not even joking. I went to college during this era. This aired in 95. I was 2 years into college. The boots they were wearing were not much smaller than this cast on her foot.
No. Oh God. No.
The only thing missing here is flannel,
And a Doc Martin tag.
Yeah, for sure.
No,
this is cool. Wait, real quick. This is cool. So she's using her rappelling rope, right? And that's what she used in the live action cartoon.
Okay, don't stop, because this is my G.I. Joe nerd. She grapple hooks her grapple hook.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that is true. Yeah, she did. She hooked a rope with a grapple hook.
Who does that?
That's awesome. But I love that must have been planned to be part of the toy. That's the only thing I can think of. If they had the foresight to use it in the live action thing, or maybe because they probably shot that live action after the episode was done. So maybe they pulled it from the episode. And I guess that's something to look for as we go on. Like I said, listeners, I haven't watched these. I'm watching them ahead of the recording, but I'm not watching ahead of what we're recording. So I don't know what's going to come next. So maybe that's what they were doing. They were shooting like a live version of something that happened in the episode, because what she did in the live action stuff kind of synced up with what we saw, right?
Yeah, don't you just hate it when uninvited guests drop in? Really inconsiderate.
I'm at a pause. Hold on. I'm listening to Mayday.
Oh.
But no, seriously, the grapple hook upon the grapple hook. I think that resonates as a part of. Here we go. Oh no, shit. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
No, well.
This is
So what they're sending out a bunch of. What are they doing now? They're lifting. They're turning they're moving the island. They're moving the island. Yeah, the island is a move. Are they gonna take this over and make it be their base?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Oh yeah, they are. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. A mobile base.
No, so
So now the Joes, so instead of
the old American hero stuff.
Well, we're gonna go right into the PSA here. So so now we've got a spooky PSA and a kid in a treehouse, like a Stephen King movie, or it's The Good Son. Oh, that kid's treehouse just fell. That kid's gonna fall to his death. The tree is breaking, and he's caught by Metalhead.
Dude,
it's so good. Anything worth doing is worth planning, which I feel my boy Matt Teese, whose band did the music for Joe on Show. He's been a guest on the show multiple times. He's always said to me, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And that's the lesson he just learned from this. I think maybe that's where Matt got it. If you're gonna do it, you might as well do it right.
If you're gonna make plans, make plans.
Yeah. Real quick observation on Metalhead. I recently rewatched the movie Jason X. Have you seen that? With from
yeah.
Friday? Yeah. Do you remember the future kid who got his arm frozen off or cut off, and then he had it regrown early, and he didn't care that it got cut off because they knew they could regrow limbs? That's Metalhead. It's completely Metalhead. Smart.
Completely.
He's smart. He's capable, but he's just that dude. That is absolutely Metalhead.
And then he gets converted by the corporate empire to the Port Break dudes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, Ryan Springer, so we've gotten to the end of the show. It's been extreme. I appreciate it. And I got to ask you, if you were to be a member of G.I. Joe or G.I. Joe Extreme, I don't want to limit you. I'll let you be your call, G.I. Joe Real American Hero or G.I. Joe Extreme. What would your code name be, and what would your specialty be?
It is Sundowner.
Sundowner.
Yeah. I paid the $1.35 or whatever to get the action figure made of me.
Oh,
and the code name I got back was Sundowner.
You did. Now, did they assign that to you? They assigned you the code name?
I have no idea. That's the file card I got.
So your character gets Alzheimer's and lives in a nursing home. Is that it?
No. I'm a Sundowner that is a biker.
Nice.
I'm like a dreadnought.
Oh, okay.
I go around and chainsaw people.
And are you a good guy or a bad guy? So are you a bad guy, dreadnought?
Well, it's complicated. That's what G.I. Joe Extreme has introduced into the mythology of G.I. Joe. Everything is complicated. So Sundowner, yeah, that's the one I paid.
I love it.
$1.35. And
you're kind of like Strike on G.I. Joe Extreme, where he was kind of a bad boy, but he helped the good guys. Strike, I believe, is the guy with the
Jamaican accent.
Without the
me.
Jamaican
you got
trappings. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, Sundowner, Ryan Springer, welcome to Joe on Joe.
Okay, now I got to throw it out.
Sure.
Dude, you fucking nailed it on Cold Slither.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to put together.
I hope you can put something together. This is fascinating. I deeply enjoy this stuff, and I probably think about it more than I ought to.
Well, I'm happy to be a part of that. And thank you so much for joining us this week on Joe on Joe. Remember, listeners, reach out to social media at Joe on Joe Pod and say hello. Let me know what you think of G.I. Joe Extreme. And remember, Extreme! And remember, now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle. Extreme!